Hello, and welcome to episode 24 of the Evil and Eerie Podcast. As you can see, it's just me again. I was supposed to record with one of the co-hosts this week, but unfortunately, due to my work schedule and other people's plans, that all just got pushed aside. So you're just seeing me. Stick around though, because it's a really cool episode. Hopefully, this will be the last time I do a solo episode, but I said that last time, and I might have to do it again in the future, so I'm not going to promise anything. But like I said, this is a really cool episode. And just want to know how you guys are doing. I know that you can't communicate with me right now, but as soon as this episode drops, hit us up in the DMs, comment below on our posts, and let us know how you're doing. We're about 2 months into the podcast at this point, which is crazy. We started on May 31st, I think was the first day of tapings. I think it released on June 7th. It's just bizarre to think that we have been doing this for 2 months. 2 months, because 8 weeks. We've been doing 3 episodes a week, and this is 24. And thank you guys for sticking around and listening to us, and hopefully we can go another 24 times 24. Hopefully we can have, many, many, many more episodes to come, but thank you all for your support. Like I said, we have a really cool episode for you guys today. I have mentioned in previous episodes that I went to school for film and English, but film is the relevant major in this episode. And I realized that we haven't too much touched upon horror, the horror genre, on this podcast as of yet. And that is certainly a part of the Evil and Eerie family. So I wanted to do a first episode dedicated to the genre of horror in film. There are also horror and gothic and mystery and thriller and suspenseful fiction, so it's not just a cinema-based genre. We also find it in the stuff we read. Or in video games in other cases. There are a lot of scary video games these days. But today we are going to focus on horror cinema. Before we jump into that, I just wanted to say I can't believe it's already almost August. This summer has just flown by. It went by way too quickly, but I am super stoked for fall. I'm usually not excited for fall, and I think I mentioned this in one of my previous episodes with Megan. I'm not usually excited for fall because of school. Not that I really was against school. I always dreaded school coming up, but this is the first year I will not be going to school in the fall, as I graduated in May. So I'm excited to see how this fall kind of has a different mentality on me. It'll be my first in, oh Lord, how many years? Almost 20, probably 18 years that I will not be going to school in the fall. So I'll actually, get to be home during those nice fall days, unless I'm at work. But my work hours are pretty weird. I'm usually there in the late afternoon at night, which I prefer. So it'll be interesting being home for the entirety of fall. I feel like I will get to take it in and enjoy it a lot more, especially because September and October, to me, is just Halloween. Not just the month of October, the month of September too. It's just getting ready for Halloween, getting ready for spooky season, and welcoming that brisk air that by the time September comes around, we are craving up here in New England, up here in Connecticut. So I'm really looking forward to fall. Whenever fall and September, October come around, I say I'm going to do this. I make a whole, Halloween-esque bucket list for myself. I say I want to go to this haunted trail, go to an abandoned, park, go to the scariest places, watch horror movies, perfect for this episode, and have all of the fall and Halloween-ish foods and drinks. Do I get around to doing a lot of it? Absolutely not. But I'm hoping this year I will have time and motivation to do so. So I'm really looking forward to fall. Let me know what your favorite seasons are. Fall's not my favorite season, by the way. Spring is, but we are far from spring, so I'm gonna settle for being excited for fall. And so it's a pretty exciting week. Outer Banks season 2 is coming out. I don't know if you guys have seen that. I saw it right like in the middle of the pandemic last year. Loved it and couldn't wait for season 2. We had to wait about a year and a quarter for it to come out. But it's going to be great. The trailers look really good, and I know I'm going to binge it in one sitting. I'm going to try not to. I like to kind of savor things, so I'm going to try not to watch it all of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Maybe I'll try to spread it out over a week, and then I'll go back to All American, which I'm also watching, which is also a great show. Season 3 of that just hit Netflix. But I am excited for it. Let me know if you guys are looking forward to Outer Banks. I've been waiting so long for it, and I really hope this season lives up to what season 1 brought us. So that's something exciting that I'm sure a lot of people are waiting for, of all demographics, because basically everybody I knew who has Netflix has seen that show, and it was a really good pandemic watch. And I actually just watched it again in its entirety because I wanted to refamiliarize myself with the storylines and what was going on before it drops. So I'm on the 10th episode of the first season again, and I, honest to God, don't remember what happens at the end, but I'm pretty sure there's a cliffhanger, and I'm excited to see how that plays out. And it's a nice night here in Connecticut. I'm gonna go for a night dip in my pool after this, which is something I kind of do routinely. Just because my sleep schedule is so weird from school, because I had night classes this past semester, and because the hours of operation where I work at the Community Access Television Center are pretty much afternoon and night. So I am a night owl, and I like to go to have some night dips in my pool. The water is a hell of a lot warmer at night than it is during the day, surprisingly. Even on a hot, okay, maybe not on a really hot day, but at night it is not bad at all. So it's just going to be a chill night. But before we jump into the meat of the episode, please rate, review, subscribe, like, download, follow us on everything. We are on Twitter at Evil Eerie Podcast, and we are at Evil and Eerie Podcast on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. You can check out our website, www.evilandeeriepodcast.com, which I'm going to update soon. I need to. I haven't worked on that in a while. And we are on YouTube, which if you are looking at me right now, you are on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell if you haven't, so you will be notified whenever we put a video up. But we are also on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Podbean, and hopefully we'll get on some other sites at some point too. So you can listen to us or watch us however you want. And we are on the road to 1K. So like I said, we are looking for subscribers. And merch will be out very shortly. We just want to take more time in building up our audience before we kind of introduce merch, because merch is going to cost us. So sorry if you've been waiting for it. I doubt many people have. Probably just me, Michelle, and the designer Kate. So, which, Michelle and Kate, if you are listening to this, we will get you those shirts relatively soon. I promise. So today we are going to talk about the first 10 horror movies that were ever recorded. And so a lot of these movies you probably have not heard of. I certainly have not heard of a lot of these, but they go back to 1896. That's how long the horror genre has been in effect. Over 100 years, which is actually, that is a hell of a lot more than 125 years on the dot, right? I think, I'm trying to do mental math quickly in my head. I'm pretty sure it's 100, no it's not. No, it's not, Lorenzo. I don't know. Somebody check the math. I'm pretty sure it's 120. All right, let me do the math in my head now because I'm driving myself crazy. Okay. Yeah, yeah, 125 years, which is insane. I, even as a cinema major, thought that the horror genre started in the 1930s with some of Hitchcock's earlier work, or the silent ones actually came first. So the like Nosferatu. I know a lot of you have probably seen or heard of Nosferatu, that creepy vampire thing. But it actually started well before that, before the before the 1900s, which is just insane to think about. So I have on this website, which is realrundown.com, I'm going to give a shout out to them, the first 10 horror movies that were ever recorded. If you were interested in seeing how the horror genre came to be in, the 125 years, I can't get over that. The 125 years that it has been a thing. Okay, so the first one we have is House of the Devil. It was made in 1896 by, I'm going to butcher this name, director Georges Mills. And I am familiar with this director. We did study him in when I was taking my first set of core classes in the cinema major. However, I do not know how to pronounce his name, and I'm generally not good with French names, so I apologize. But George Milles made House of the Devil. I really hope none of my professors are listening to this. So this is considered the first horror film ever made, and was deemed lost until a copy turned up at the New Zealand Film Archive in 1988. We're already off to a creepy start. You know when something is lost, like one of those lost tapes, it's just creepier than anything. And I know there have been a lot of creepypastas about lost tapes. It's a whole section of, creepypasta. I went down a rabbit hole one day of creepypasta lost tapes, and it was scary. So its title has also been translated to Manor of the Devil, The Haunted Castle, The Devil's Manor, and The Devil's Castle. This series of sketches begins with a bat transforming into Mephistopheles. That's a mouthful. An agent of the devil. With the help of his assistant, he conjures demonic entities from a cauldron, which then go on to prank two men who enter the castle. In the end, one of the men uses a crucifix to make Mephistopheles disappear. So I'm kind of getting comedy vibes with this. I honest to God, have not looked down the list until now, so I don't know if I've seen any of these films. I have not seen House of the Devil. But I'm getting kind of, oh my god, I can't, screwball comedy vibes, which is a subgenre of comedy that was very prevalent in the early 1900s, even though we're in 1896 right now. So, just the whole pranking thing. But I mean, it's also, scary. We got a crucifix, demonic entities, a cauldron, Mephistopheles. Scary. House of the Devil was filmed in the director's garden outside his home in Montreal. In a city. I'm not even going to try and say these names. Actress Jihan Diasi, who appeared in several of his films and eventually married him, nepotism, played the role of a woman who emerges from the cauldron. Some historians believe Mephistopheles was played by magician Jules Eugene Legris, who later appeared in his other film, A Trip to the Moon. That I have seen in 1902. That's one of the staples of film. Others believe he himself played the role. So they don't even know if the director, Milles, played the role or if somebody else was in it. That's creepy in itself, is that you can't even figure out who the main actor is. Oh, Lord. Well, another one by Milles, which is number 2, is A Terrible Night, and this was also in 1896. So basically what, we're figuring out here is that George Milles made a lot of horror films in 1896. So he gets the prize for being the first to do this kind of stuff. So in this horror comedy, okay, so his other one is comedy, so I'm assuming there's a lot of comedy in these, which comedy and horror you've really got to do well. The scary movies do it fantastically. I love, just off topic for a second, if you have not seen the Scary Movie franchise, watch it. Watch it. It's brilliantly hilarious. You will piss yourself laughing. Some of my favorite movies of all time. And there's another one with the Wayans brothers, who the Wayans brothers are also in the Scary Movies, but they actually made their own. I can't think of the name of it, but that's also a lot of funny. Definitely check those out. But horror and comedy are a combination that really have to get put well together. So I think I'm gonna watch these two by Millies and see how well he kind of incorporated the comedy into the horror, because it doesn't always work. So in this horror comedy, a man tries to get a good night's sleep at an inn, but ends up wrestling a giant spider in an over-the-top comedic manner. Okay, that definitely is more of a comedy. The man, seeing a giant spider climbing the wall, picks up a broom, swats it down, and stomps on it. Then he dumps the dead spider in his chamber pot and goes back to bed, but finds he is unable to fall asleep now. Melies himself played the man, and the spider was a pasteboard prop controlled by a wire, rather than a product of the special effects he was known for. Interesting. So at least we know he's playing the role in this one. But props were crazy back then. I mean, props have advanced so much, and special effects have gone so far. It's amazing how they used to control things back in the day when we weren't that technologically savvy with the props. They made it look real, though. I give props, no pun intended, to them for making it look real and really almost, I don't want to say deceiving, but deceiving the audience, making it think it was real. Especially with a spider. I mean, oh my god, people must have flipped their lid. At the time, the premise of a person in a hotel bed trying unsuccessfully to fall asleep was popular among variety shows on stage. The film may have marked the first time the scenario was depicted on screen, which is very interesting. It reminds me of all the shows that have dream sequences. Like everything's basically, if your show doesn't have a dream sequence, then is it really a show? I'm kidding. So, okay, we have a third by George Millies. He was really active in 1896. Oh my lord, A Nightmare was the next one. It could be considered the first dream sequence. I promise I didn't read this article. It's like I say one thing and then he also likes to work with dreams, I guess. The first dream sequence in film history, and the first use of psychological horror. Ooh. Back when it was released by his Star Film Company, it was advertised as a scène fantastique, referring to the French term for a genre that encompasses science fiction, horror, and fantasy, which are three of the most popular genres of all time. And we all know sci-fi and horror go really well together. Sci-fi and fantasy go really well together. Horror and fantasy go well together. Like they all really complement each other well. So having all three in one is a difficult task for sure. The film depicts a man in a bed on a stage, trying to fall asleep. A beautiful woman appears at the edge of his bed, but as he eagerly sits up and tries to kiss her, she transforms into a minstrel, dances on the bed, and then transforms into a clown. That is really weird. He likes doing stuff with people trying to fall asleep, and it's really interesting that because I mean I have this all the time. I don't know if you guys do, where you're in that state of mind where you're about to fall asleep, but you're not quite there yet, and your mind just goes into these odd places, and then you like kind of snap out of it and realize you're still awake, and you're like, wait, why am I thinking of that? I kind of think that's the phenomenon that he was trying to encapsulate with this film, and I would love to know how. And this one's I think number one on the bucket list to watch. A beautiful woman. I want to know how they turned her into a minstrel and then into a clown. That is quite a transformation, and with, like I said, the effects that they had back then that were kind of basic. I would have loved to see how they did that. So that is really cool. I'm just picturing this one. Oh my lord, that's funny. That honestly, this one definitely seems like the most horror-esque of the three, but holy cow. It's kind of funny in that alone. The background changes and the man finds himself on a balcony, where an enormous moon with a creepy face smiles down ominously. The moon expands in size and bites the man's arm, then laughs as the man flails around in pain. Okay, that one. Okay, the moon. I don't like that. The moon smiling. I've seen the moon and the sun. Just like they put all these emotions on them. That is creepy when the natural elements of the world start coming to life. And then he bites his arm and laughs. That is some crazy stuff. The woman, the minstrel, and the clown all reappear and dance around the man, laughing and jeering at him. The terrified man hides under his blankets, then emerges to find that the scary trio has vanished and the room is back to normal. Okay, so I just want to reiterate. Actually, not reiterate. Remind all of you. That's the same thing, Lorenzo. Main words today are just not having it. I just want to bring to everybody's attention that in 1896, movies did not have sound. These were all silent films. So it would be scary to watch a movie like that with all the laughing and all the dancing and all that. But imagine how much creepier it is silent. Like, there was nothing. So you're just watching people dancing, laughing, like, with no sound. To me, there's nothing creepier than that. Like, you can't get... Like, that's honestly what makes it scarier. And I think that's what was very successful about early horror. I think it really worked well that it had no sound. And I think that works well with the psychological aspect as well. It really plays with your mind. It really screws, it screws, with your psyche. But that one's definitely on number one on the watch list right now, because that has got to be creepy. Just like, oh Lord. Well, we are on number 4 right now, The X-Ray Fiend, 1897. The work of accomplished photographer turned director George Albert Smith, The X-Ray Fiend was a horror comedy that came out a mere 2 years after X-rays were invented. An audience full of people unaccustomed to the idea would have found it frightening and otherworldly. I would imagine. I didn't know the X-rays were that recent, actually. Not that that's, recent times, 1897, but I had thought they had come out quite a bit before that. But all these are horror comedies, too. The film begins with a man and a woman flirting while being observed by a professor. This is already odd. The professor turns on an X-ray and watches them flirting as skeletons, an effect that was achieved with glowing black bodysuits. Those are scary. As he turns the X-ray off, the pair have an argument and break up. Again, this is all interesting in this, like, the silent film era. Like, they really must have had to use a lot of strong body language to convey all of that. Flirting and breaking up, because, you couldn't use your words. Prior to becoming a photographer and filmmaker, Smith worked as a stage hypnotist, psychic, inventor, and lecturer. He was also a key member of an informal group of British film pioneers called Brighton School, and a close friend and collaborator of Millie's. Throughout his career, he contributed to advances in film and editing the color film process. All things that are so prevalent in filmmaking these days, so truly a pioneer. And so was Millie's. Truly, truly pioneers. And, George Millie's is back for number 5, The Bewitched Inn, 1897. The Bewitched Inn was another horror comedy from Millie's. It was the first time the director used his well-known trope of inanimate objects coming to life. So it's not enough that we've got the moon coming to life. Now we've got to take household objects and give them animation too. Oh, Lord. The plot was likely inspired by the Hamlin-Lees, a popular British acrobat group that performed comedy acts where they leapt through hidden trapdoors. In one particular skit, a guest at a candlelit hotel is pranked and tormented by an unseen presence. I would love to see how he was, like, pranked and tormented, like, just, like, by an unseen, so he was by a ghost, so what was he doing, just, like, flailing on the ground and, like, like, moving in, like, weird directions. That, this one kind of, I can't talk, this one kind of sounds cool, too. I said in a previous episode a couple of weeks ago, acrobats, I love the idea of circuses. I love how creepy they are. I love, like, I don't, I, clowns are, clowns, I'm not scared of clowns, but they're just, they piss me off. So, I do love, like, the whole, like, aspect of circuses being creepy. Sorry, I'm hearing noises. I love the whole aspect of circuses being creepy and all of that. And I'd love to go to, like, an abandoned, like, circus or carnival if there are any out there. Loved Freak Show of American Horror Story. The acrobats, out of everything, acrobats to me are the freakiest, just because, like, they can, like, contort their bodies and, like, weird, and they're just, acrobats are, to me, those are the creepy ones. It's not the clowns, it's the acrobats. And I don't know why every time the acrobat from Coraline comes into my head. Great movie, by the way. And if it's still on Netflix, I'm adding that to the Halloween watch list this year. So, in the Bewitched Inn, a traveler arrives at a small hotel where he puts his luggage on the bed. His luggage disappears. Then he sets down his pith helmet, and it jumps and moves around on its own before disappearing as well. The traveler tries to light a candle, but it jumps across the room and explodes. As he undresses, his coat flies through the wall, his trousers fly through the ceiling, and his boots walk away. Finally, the traveler jumps into the bed, which disappears and reappears. This is the final straw that prompts him to leave the hotel. Those are all of the key features of early comedy. So that one is definitely more comedic based than horror based, and I'd be willing to bet that I would be correct on that if I were to watch it. But it sounds good. It sounds like something people the likes of, like, Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin would have done. And for those of you who don't know who they are probably the most famous two silent film actors. Charlie Chaplin is definitely definitely the most famous. Buster Keaton is up there with him, and then, you know, the Marx Brothers are up there as well. I know a lot of old stuff. So we're halfway through, and I just wanted to take a break and touch on something that me, Megan, and Luca, you all know Megan and Luca, are going to do this Halloween season, because it's an idea that we came up with, and it kind of relates to today's episode, and I just wanted to share it with all of you. We are going to pick a Saturday night in October, come into my basement, which we are currently in right now. I've got a TV to the right of me, and we are just going to get a ton of shit junk food and binge watch horror movies, and I'm super excited for it. We're all super into horror films, duh. And we're trying to make a list of horror movies that we can watch. And we might also do some horror TV. Like, we might throw, like, because I love horror TV shows too. Like Twilight Zone, Tales from the Dark Side, Tales from the Crypt. 3 of the best shows in existence. I own all of them on DVD. Yes, DVD. So we might throw some of those in as well. But we wanna really pick some good horror movies to just binge all day. If you have any suggestions, drop them below. We're not going to watch any that we have all seen, which are the more famous ones. We kind of want to watch the lesser known ones. Maybe some B, C, D rated films. And by that, I like, the letters don't mean they, like, get dirtier. Those are just the more independent films that nobody has heard of. The lower budget films, which sometimes, honestly, are better. Sometimes they are better. Sometimes they are not. We also want to kind of do it by decade. We like older films. We're all into older cinema, so 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s potentially. If you know of any good ones, please, by all means, let us know. We'll add it to the list, and we will review them. It's going to be a lot of fun. Super, super excited for that. We also want to go on Tubi, because there are a lot of free ones on Tubi that we have heard are so low budget that they're, like, almost comedic. And that's nothing against the director or anybody that worked on the film, because those movies are sometimes the most fun to make. And sometimes, they do get the best audience reaction. I have made a couple of films in my time as a student, and they would definitely be along the lines of those, the ones that Tubi has. So if there are any good ones on Tubi that are like scary and like even like so like low budget that they're kind of comedic, drop them. We'd love to watch them and just share our thoughts on them. But anyway, let's jump back into the list. This one, number 6, is Photographing a Ghost. It was made in 1898. This is another one from George Albert Smith, who made number 4 on the list. It could be considered a precursor to the paranormal investigation subgenre, which we all know that paranormal investigation is a huge subgenre of horror. This lost film portrays 3 men who attempt to photograph a ghost, only to fail time and time again as the ghost eludes them and throws chairs. In the end, the photographers are overcome by despair and give up trying. Well, that's an odd ending, I must say. It sounds like that one. I don't know. It kind of like they kind of build it up, but that ending is just they give up. But again, I'd love to see what effects they did for it. The year before releasing Photographing a Ghost, Smith patented a method to make double exposures, having been influenced by photographer William Turner. Afterward, he then went on to co-develop and patent Kinemacolor. It's I can't talk. It is Kinemacolor, the first commercial Cinemacolor system in 1906. So, like I said, he was a pioneer. Thank you, Mr. Albert Smith. Is that his name? I already forgot. Yes, George Albert Smith. So, The Cave of the Demons, 1898, is the next one. The Cave of the Demons is about a woman who stumbles across a haunted cave where she encounters the ghosts of people who died there. Caves are another thing that are like creepy, like those abandoned beaches, or like beaches in the wintertime when like nobody's around them. Because I don't think that any beach could really be abandoned unless it's like, in the middle of God knows where. But the caves are really creepy. That's an A+ prime spot for a horror film to take place. Caves, especially in the olden days. Like, woo. This was the first film in which director George Méliès used multiple exposure, a camera technique in which 2 or more exposures are superimposed to create one image. Though the technique was used in photography as far back as 1890, this is its first recorded use in a moving picture. So he was quite an experimental filmmaker, trying out all these things, which was 100% a risk in those times. It was because they tried to do a lot of things, and you either sank or swam with it, but it seems like this one swam. As the film is currently lost, there are no records of its cast or crew. All that's known for sure is that it was released by Storm Film Company in 1898. Well, that's upsetting, and I wonder how many are on this list that have been lost. I was interested in watching The Cave of the Demons up until it said that, which is depressing, but hopefully there are at least a couple available that we can watch. That's sad when things get lost like that. Resurrection of a Corpse, 1898, and 9. 8 and 9 are together. 9 is Jizu the... Oh my. What? Okay. Number 9 is Jizzo. And they, like I said, both in 1898. In 1898, Japanese film company Konishi Hanten released 2 horror films, Shinin no Sosi, which translates to Resurrection of a Corpse, and Jizu. Both written by Ijiro Hata. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering these names. So the first one told the story of a dead man who comes back to life, having fallen from a coffin that 2 men were carrying. Oh. Hata himself plays the dead man, while the coffin bearers were played by Kanoshi employees Kobayashi and Sugiura. That reminds me of the classic Twilight Zone episode, and by classic I mean 1960s version, because there are 4 different is that it? Carnations? Of the 4 different versions, better word, of the Twilight Zone. The 60s, 80s, 2000s, and the recent one that Jordan Peele is doing. And there was an episode of the 60s version about a man who had passed away, and they were at the funeral, and he came to life during the funeral. Good episode. Though there are no records of the cast, crew, or plot of Jizzo, it is likely based on the Japanese legend of Jizzo statues, believed to provide safety. I don't know. When I talk too fast, I kind of just my goes everywhere. To provide safety and protection. The presence of the word bake, I'm assuming it's bake, which can be translated to ghost or phantom, may imply a haunted or possessed statue. All of these ones that have no cast or crew, or the plot even written down, those are the scariest, just based off of their production. Not even based off of the film. The production just makes it horrifying. Number 10 is The Miser's Doom, made in 1899. So all 10 of these were made before 1900. Insane. Walter R. Booth made his directorial debut with The Miser's Doom, 1899, a film about a miser who is haunted by the ghost of a poor woman he took money from. The trauma of this encounter makes him die of shock. And the whole idea of vengeance in horror is one of the most common story. You see, if I were currently in school, I'd be able to remember all these terms and all that. It is one of the more common plot lines. Functions. That's it. It's one of the more common narrative functions with horror. Vindictiveness, especially when someone is dead or soon after passes away, or the evil act causes someone to pass away. The vengeance that the ghost enacts just makes the horror film 10 times scarier. So, Walter R. Booth recognized that and capitalized on it, which is very smart. Booth started out as a magician before working on trick films, a genre designed for the sole purpose of featuring special effects. He went on to direct the first British animated film, The Hand of the Artist, which was in 1906. A lot of those magicians, even the acrobats, the clowns, everybody, all those special artists, their talents really came in handy in making horror films. They really did. Over the course of 20 years, Booth would direct over 160 short films, which is doesn't seem like a large number, but that is quite a bit. Afterward, he specialized in producing advertisements, including a commercial for Cadbury's cocoa and chocolate. Yum! But there is an honorable mention, The Joyous Skeleton, in 1898. In 1898, brothers August and Louis Lumiere, the Lumiere brothers, I am super familiar with. They are probably, if I had to rank the most influential early filmmakers, I think the Lumiere brothers would be at the very top. They were very, very integral parts of the development of film. So I know the Lumiere brothers well. They directed a 1-minute film of a dancing stop-motion skeleton who keeps falling apart and putting his bones back together. The title, Le Squelette Joyeux. I have not taken a day of French in my life. Please forgive me. I took Spanish up until 8th grade and then Latin for 4 years, so I don't know any languages. Otherwise known as the Joyous Skeleton. Also known as the Dancing Skeleton, the Cheerful Skeleton, or the Skeleton of Joy. This was more of an experimental film than an attempt at horror, but it deserves credit for being the first to portray a skeleton, even if its portrayal was more comedic than scary. Yeah, like I said, a lot of these are more funny than scary, but again, pioneering works. Skeletons would later appear in several of Millet's films, so this may have been an influence on his work. I'm sure the Lumiere brothers influenced every filmmaker, even if, the filmmakers don't know who the Lumiere brothers are. If they don't, they shouldn't be in the industry, but. So I can to God tell you I have not seen any of those, maybe with the exception of the skeleton one that the Lemire brothers did. I might have seen that one. Can't remember, though. I know I've seen a lot of their stuff, but I have not seen any of those. Hopefully they are not all lost, because I would love to watch them. And I think that the ones that are available, I think I should watch and review for you guys. Of course, I'll provide the description again, but let me know if you guys want to hear me review those, because they might not be, what we conventionally think or know of as horror, but those were the origins of horror. And it's just, I was thinking today, I was like, when I was trying to come up with a topic, because I wanted to do something different from last time, different from my, personal experiences. But when I came across this, I was like, all right, so horror movies. And then at one point, I was going to do my top 10 favorite horror movies, but I was like, no, you gotta start with the originals. You gotta pay respect to what came first. So I was like, first 10 horror movies ever made. And like I said, I kind of, before I knew that the Lemire brothers and Millets did work with horror, I kind of assumed that horror started with the Nosferatus and all of that in the 20s. I think the Creature from the Black Lagoon, don't quote me on that, was another one that was really early. I don't know if that one was earlier or 60s, 70s-ish, but Hitchcock's films, I know, were super early. I think he started in the 30s. So I was under the impression that those were the first horror films, so I was looking up the horror films of the 20s, 30s, 40s that I was going to review, but then I saw that they had made some in the 1800s, so I wanted to start right from the beginning. And I am going to do 20s, 30s, 40s. Hitchcock is getting his own episode, because that man was... He is the king of horror. He is the king of horror. He really is. No one comes close to Alfred Hitchcock. No one. In horror. And he had his own show too, by the way. His own kind of version of The Twilight Zone, called Alfred Hitchcock Presents, another phenomenal show. And Hitchcock is definitely going to get his own episode, because he has so many, and so many that I haven't seen yet. And I think once I watch them all, I'm going to do a complete ranking of them. Let me know what you guys think, though. Thank you for sticking around today. I really appreciate you listening. Remember to rate, review, subscribe, download, do all that. I am going to be back with, I believe, a new host on Monday. I just have to work the kinks out, but I have to actually send her a text at some point today, or she can text me if she listens to this episode before I get to text. But our merch designer, Kate, if you're listening, if you are still on to record this weekend, hit me up. But I do want to kind of bring new hosts, and I have some other people lined up too, so you'll either get to meet Kate next time. She's a lot of fun, super funny, or I will be back with Megan over Zoom. So I'm not sure which is going to happen, but stay tuned, and stay tuned for an announcement on the next topic, because I am also not sure what that's going to be. We're going to play it by ear. And honestly, it's 1:30 in the morning, I think. And this is about the time I go for a dip in my pool. And I know a lot of you out there are thinking I'm crazy. But when you have different work hours and you had night classes for most of your college career, it's your sleep schedule gets screwed. Your sleep schedule gets screwed. So I'm going to go take a dip in my pool and listen to a podcast, but have a very evil and eerie rest of your day. And next time I see you, it'll be August. So happy August. See ya.